In December 2022, hunters in southeast Georgia made a gruesome discovery. Scattered human remains spread across nearly 3 miles of remote logging and hunting grounds. Over the course of 5 days, more body parts would surface, but the victim's identity remained a mystery. For 6 long months, investigators worked tirelessly until the woman was finally identified as 40-year-old Mindi Mebane Kassotis. What followed was an unbelievable unraveling of secrets, a tangled story of threats, manipulation, hidden romance, and money. This case shocked both investigators and the local community, revealing just how far betrayal and obsession can go. Join us as we uncover the disturbing case of Mindi Mebane Kassotis, a story that begins with scattered remains and ends with a chilling revelation. The hunters who made the initial discovery had set out that December morning expecting a routine day. It was the kind of crisp Georgia winter where the air carried every sound, where the crunch of boots over pine needles echoed through the woods. But instead of deer tracks or wild hogs, they stumbled upon something that froze them in place. What appeared to be a human leg, severed cleanly at the joint, lying partially covered by brush. For a moment, they thought it had to be a prank or maybe a mannequin part, something staged. But when officers arrived, the truth became undeniable. It was real, flesh, bone, and human life reduced to a fragment. The scene was sealed off immediately, and within days, more discoveries followed. Investigators working through the dense forest uncovered additional remains spread across nearly 3 miles of rugged terrain. It was as though someone had taken deliberate steps to scatter the body, a chilling attempt to delay or even prevent identification. The brutality of the act shook even the most seasoned law enforcement officers. This was not just a killing. This was a calculated effort to erase someone's identity, to turn them into nothing more than unrecognizable pieces. But the first and most pressing question was, who was she? Investigators scoured missing persons reports, cross-referencing details with local, state, and national databases. They interviewed families, checked recent runaways, even reached out across state lines. But no cases matched. No one had reported a woman missing who fit the profile of the remains. For weeks, then months, silence hung over the investigation. Without a name, there could be no motive, no timeline, no suspects. Behind the scenes, however, forensic specialists were working quietly. DNA was extracted from the remains and entered into national databases. There were no immediate hits. The body had been too degraded, too fragmented. But advances in forensic genealogy opened a door. Analysts began comparing the DNA against public genealogy databases, searching for distant relatives who might hold the key to the woman's identity. It was a painstaking process, requiring months of analysis, tracing family trees, narrowing down possible connections. Finally, in May 2023, the break came. A relative match was strong enough to lead investigators to her family, and the remains were positively identified. The woman whose body had been left to rot in the Georgia woods was 40-year-old Mindi Mebane Kassotis. Mindi's story was one of contrasts. To her friends and family, she was kind, dependable, and intelligent. A woman who was warm and loyal, someone who could be counted on. To neighbors, she lived what looked like an ordinary suburban life, married to Nicholas Kassotis. But beneath the surface of that marriage, tension simmered. Those who had known them sensed something was off. Control, distance, an unease that hinted at deeper problems. Once investigators had Mindi's name, they turned immediately to the person closest to her, her husband. Nicholas Kassotis presented himself as calm, even cooperative. But cracks appeared quickly. His answers shifted under pressure. He spoke of vague threats, of menacing figures supposedly after him. He claimed there were people pulling strings in the background, shadowy figures influencing his life. But when detectives pressed him for details, his stories unraveled. Each version contradicted the last. As detectives dug deeper, the image of Nicholas as a steady husband collapsed. Records revealed financial strain. Digital forensics pulled from his devices showed manipulation, secret communications, and troubling patterns. Friends and acquaintances began to describe the relationship in darker terms. A marriage far from stable, marked by control and tension. Behind closed doors, Nicholas was not who he seemed. The more they uncovered, the more disturbing it became. Nicholas had been living a double life. While married to Mindi, he was carrying on a hidden romance, feeding lies to other women, and spinning elaborate stories to cover his tracks. One by one, those deceptions came crashing down. Still, one chilling question lingered. Who could commit such a gruesome act? To dismember another human being, to scatter body parts across miles of wilderness. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was something else, something calculated, something depraved. By mid-2023, the evidence against Nicholas had mounted to the point of collapse. Investigators arrested him, charging him with the murder of his wife. For the community, the news was almost too much to process. For months, the case had been about a nameless Jane Doe. Now she had her name back, and the accused killer was the man who was supposed to have loved and protected her. When the trial began, the courtroom transformed into a theater of lies, betrayal, and shocking revelations. Prosecutors painted a chilling portrait of Nicholas as a manipulator, a deceiver, a man who created an entire world of fiction around himself. They showed the jury his lies, his double life, and the brutality of the crime itself. The defense clung to a story that seemed ripped from a bad crime novel. Nicholas, they said, was not guilty. The real killer, he claimed, was a man named Jim McIntyre. But there was no Jim McIntyre. No records, no history, no connection to Mindi. Nothing but a name Nicholas invented in desperation. Prosecutors dismantled the story piece by piece, and even the judge called it fiction. As testimony unfolded, the depth of Nicholas's deceit shocked everyone. His first wife, Heather Thomas, took the stand, describing patterns of control and manipulation that went back years. She painted a portrait of a man who thrived on deception. Then came Samantha Kolesnik, the woman Nicholas married just months after Mindi's remains were discovered. Samantha's testimony left the courtroom stunned. She explained that Nicholas had lied to her from the very beginning, convincing her his wife and child were already dead. With her voice shaking, she said she felt violated, that her very identity had been stolen because the man she thought she married had lied about his entire life. Her words carried a raw pain that silenced the room. And then came the voices of Mindi's family. Her sister-in-law described the devastation the murder had brought, the irreplaceable hole left in their lives. Yet in a surprising twist, Mindi's own parents pleaded for mercy, insisting they believed Nicholas could not have done it. They begged the judge not to condemn him, but the jury saw the case differently. They listened to the evidence, the testimony, the mountain of proof prosecutors laid before them. And after careful deliberation, they returned with a unanimous verdict. Guilty on all 12 counts, including malice murder and felony murder. During sentencing, Judge Charles Rose did not hold back. He described the murder as a truly heinous crime, one that displayed a level of depravity that shocks the conscience. He spoke of the deception, the brutality, the cold calculation that defined the case, and then he delivered the sentence. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 25 additional years. For the family, the outcome was both justice and tragedy. Mindi's name had been restored, her killer held accountable, but nothing could bring her back. For 6 months, she had been a Jane Doe, her story scattered like her remains. And though investigators gave her back her identity, the haunting reality of her final days would never leave those who loved her. The case of Mindi Mebane Kassotis is not just a story of murder. It is a story of deception carried to terrifying extremes, of manipulation so deep it fooled even those closest to the truth, and of a man whose double life ended in violence. It forces us to confront a chilling reality, that sometimes the greatest danger comes not from strangers, but from the person we trust most. This was the disturbing case of Mindi Mebane Kassotis,